Hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube video channel. And today I have an amazing guest here on my episode, and this one is going to be amazing. We're going to talk about quite a few different things, and especially how important is your relationship with food, binge eating, how to go against a lot of different mindset states that we get to find ourselves in a trap, and we need to start getting out of that. So Jordan Syatt, what's your background and what's your why? Especially talking about why you do what you do.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I would say the reason I do what I do is I love coaching. I really love, I've coached people since I was 14 years old. I think it was a big revelation for me to understand the difference between loving working out and loving coaching, which are I think people confuse the two oftentimes. Like I see a lot of people now wanting to be a coach. They want to be a personal trainer. And I think a lot of it comes from, they like going to the gym. They like working out themselves. And then they're like, you know what? I love being in the gym. I would love to coach people. Like I sort of want to do it all the time. And then once they start coaching people, they get really drained and they don't like it anymore. And the reason is because it's one thing to enjoy working out. It's one thing to enjoy preparing your own meals and taking care of your own health. But when you're coaching someone else, it's a completely different game. And I've just really embraced and enjoyed the process of helping other people achieve their goals. And yeah, so that's why I do what I do.
That's awesome. And you said you started very, very young. What made you decided to go into coaching? And you also did a degree specifically in psychology. What is that background? What led you to do that?
I originally went to college for exercise science. That's what I entered for. But I very quickly learned that wasn't the best use of my time or money. By the time I got to college, I had already been coaching people for about 4 years. And I learned that you could have the best program in the world. You could have the best nutrition plan in the world. But if you're not following it, it doesn't matter. Or you could literally have the best one in the world, but if you don't follow it, it doesn't matter. So exercise science, I realized, was a lot of people learning the basics and learning about what might be optimal on paper, but nothing optimal on paper ever actually works out, right? So I switched to behavioral health science, behavioral health psychology, and I wanted to learn why people are making the decisions they're making. Because basically everybody knows that they should be working out. Everybody knows they should be drinking more water. Everyone knows they should be sleeping and eating well, but not everybody's doing it. And they struggle to get motivated. They struggle to stay consistent with it. So I wanted to learn why people are making the decisions they're making. And even when they know they should or should not be making those decisions. So that's what I majored in.
That's amazing. And I think you are in the right spot right now at the moment. There's a lot of information out there. There is plenty of resources. Like there is so much free information and access to a lot of different things. But the problem comes back down to behavior and habits, and how do we change these things? And it's not just that you want to do certain things, but sometimes you don't know how to change it, or you don't have the strategies. And that's where people get stuck, and they feel like they cannot go ahead. And sometimes the major problem comes down to mindset and these sort of thinking that if you messed up, you can't continue doing that because you feel like you failed, and that prevents you to continue to do the same things that you were doing before, just get back on track. But it's just a mindset thing that is, or I do it or I don't do it, and that sort of makes mess with a lot of people. How do you manage to tell someone to give, like when it comes to your relationship with food, how do you manage to give unconditional permission to have all the foods they like, they love, but they actually struggle with portion control because they have this mindset of all or nothing, and they just can have a little bit? What do you tell to your clients in that case?
This is a really good question. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with. And usually I just had this conversation with a client the other day. Or actually, it wasn't the other day. It was a couple months ago. But when I first started working with this client, he told me, he said, I'm the kind of person who can't just have a couple slices of pizza. He was like, I'm either going to eat the whole pizza or no pizza at all. And I think a lot of people can relate to this, where it's like they're either going to eat all of it or none of it. But that's the issue, right? The issue is that they feel like if they're going to eat it, they have to eat all of it. So then as a coach, you have to think, why? What's going on? Why do they feel like they have to eat all of it or none of it? And the reason is because as soon as they have one slice of pizza or one slice of cake or one donut, whatever it is, they think they messed up. They think as soon as they have one, their entire diet is ruined. They blew it. So in that moment, they've decided, well, since I already blew it, since I already messed up, I might as well go all out and eat all of it, because I know when I'm done, no more. I can't have any more. And then unfortunately, until the next time they think they blew it. And so that's that binge restrict cycle. So in order to get to a point in which you can have 2 or 3 slices of pizza and call it, you have to understand that just because you have one slice doesn't mean you screwed anything up. Just because you have 3 slices, or even if you do eat the whole pizza, you didn't mess up. You just get right back on track. And when people start to understand this and it's no longer off limits, now they can start to feel less guilty about it, because it's that guilt that drives them to say, well, you know what, screw it, I'm going to eat all of it. If you eliminate guilt, then you eliminate the binge. So first we have to get to the point where they actually believe, you know what, it's okay for me to have pizza and not feel guilty about it. It's okay for me to have pizza and understand it didn't ruin my progress. And when you do that, then you could have 2 or 3 slices of pizza, be totally fine, and move on.
That's true. And I would say I did ask this question because I've been getting clients, and especially bringing on a case study with a client that I'm currently working with, that she is saying, I think all my life I've thought about treats, and I always looking forward to have a treat at night, and I sort of desperately need to have a treat, and I struggle to being able to control my portion sizes. I think I always want more, and I struggle with that. And they don't. Well, when I ask her, well, but do you feel guilty? Do you feel like it is any negative association to when you eat or sit down to do that? And she says sometimes that she doesn't feel guilty, but it's something that she feels like she needs to do it, or she's relying emotionally to use it as a coping mechanism. So I don't know, what are your thoughts about that? Like, if guilty wasn't the problem, what's going on?
So I think this is a really good question, and I don't think enough people talk about this. There are many reasons why someone might binge eat, okay? And the one that I'm qualified to talk about is specifically in regard to binge eating disorder, specifically related to feelings of guilt and shame and negative relationships with food. But not everybody has a negative relationship with food, from the perspective of some people, they might have had a past trauma in their life, and the way that they cope with it is through binge eating or through eating or whatever it is. So I think it's really important for me to say that's not the only reason why people binge eat. It's not only because they're restricting in other areas of their life. There might be something else going on. So with that person, I would encourage them to talk to me, and I would try and figure out more and more about it. But odds are, if it's outside of my scope and it's not something that I don't fully understand, I'll encourage them to speak with a therapist, because it's not appropriate for me to dive into something that I'm not an expert or a professional on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. I think sometimes we need that approach, especially because there is a lot of coaches that they'll get these type of clients and they think they should be having all answers, and they get frustrated just because they should be knowing everything that they are doing with the clients, and that makes it very difficult and frustrating for the clients per se, because they are trying to believe and rely on their coach, and their coach is going to try to do everything they need, even though they have no true answers to solve the problem. So they just can make it more complicated.
Yeah, I think, one of the hardest lessons have had to learn as a coach is that I'm not going to be able to help everybody. I think that's one of the hardest parts about being a coach, because most people, when they become a coach, they want to help everybody. That's why they're a coach. They want to help. And that's why they study so much and they get all these certifications and they spend so much time researching because they want 100% client success rate. But it's devastating when you really learn it's not going to happen. Just like doctors, like I would imagine one of the hardest parts about being a doctor is understanding you're not going to be able to save everyone's life, right? It's like sometimes someone will die and maybe it's your fault. Maybe you made a mistake, or maybe it wasn't your fault. Maybe it was just something that happened that you didn't foresee or didn't predict or whatever it was. And I think in every aspect of life, most people, they just want to be able to help. But when you learn that you're not going to be able to help everyone, then you can start to internalize, be like, okay, you know what, this is okay. And then you can start looking to refer out as quickly as possible. Because I know a lot of personal trainers and nutritionists and dietitians, they get mad at doctors who work outside of their scope, right? Doctors are not personal trainers. They're not strength coaches. They're not nutritionists. They have their scope of practice. But when a doctor then gives nutrition advice, we get upset. We're like, stop. That's not your scope. That's not what you studied. In the same way, just because you're a dietitian or a strength coach or whatever it is, that doesn't mean you understand every aspect of health. It doesn't mean you understand exactly what every person needs in relation to their fitness, their nutrition, their mental health, emotional health. So do your best to your capability and within your scope. And if it's not in your scope, refer out as quickly as possible.
I agree. You have to think about how you can work and involve the other professionals that really have the capacity to respond to these challenges for the client, or even consult with them or present the case so you can get a better advice and not just go from what is the first idea that you think you apply with one client that now it could apply with this client. Because sometimes we sort of feel like, well, this is the experience I had with this client, so I might just apply the same thing and see what happens.
Yep, exactly.
Sometimes there is a lot of people that think, and you mentioned it before, there is a guilt associated with certain foods just because they think they're wrong or they're bad to have. And how do you get a client or someone who's working with you to stop thinking they are bad foods in the first place? How do you tell someone to change how they see food they have always considered they are bad things, they are bad for your health, for your body composition, and get that anxiety out of that thinking? Because this is very common, and I experienced it myself a long time ago, that even though I knew all foods were equal and some more nutritious than others, I still had that anxiety that if I went to go and eat a hamburger or something fried or a donut, I still felt uncomfortable. And in my head, there was something going on that I've always felt guilt or just not guilt, but sometimes that uncomfortable feeling that I was doing something that was going to harm my body composition and my health. Even if I was in a calorie deficit, I was still struggling. What
Correct.
would you say about that?
So this is very common. And I think it's human nature to sort of group things in general as good or bad, right? We can group foods. This is good. This is bad. We can group different things. We can even group different people. This person's good. This person's bad. That's what we do. And it's very prevalent right now in politics. That person's good. That person's bad. It's just so easy to be like good, bad. It's much harder to actually understand the nuance and to understand it always depends. And every single person, every single thing has good and bad within it, right? Everything. When it comes to food, and specifically in relation to body composition, fat gain, I always try and come up with analogies and sayings that help people understand it on a more logical level, right? So from a fat gain perspective, someone's eating fried food, maybe they're, fried food or a donut or a pizza or a cake. They feel guilty about it. They feel worried because they feel like eating it, they're going to get fat from it. From one of the most popular phrases that I've come up with is I always say, listen, no one's ever gotten fat from having one donut, just like no one's ever gotten skinny from having one salad, right? In the same way, and sort of the same anxiety and worry that people have when they miss a workout, right? Why they don't want to take any rest days. Like, listen, no one ever got jacked and shredded from one great workout. No one ever lost all their muscle and got fat from missing one workout. Progress in either direction takes time. So just like no one ever got fat from having one donut, no one ever got skinny from having one salad. And when you start to say something like that, you're like, yeah, you're right. That makes sense. So in this sense, you can start to understand one food isn't going to ruin your progress. One meal, one bite, whatever it is, it's not going to ruin or make or break all of your progress. Now, I think it's important to differentiate between fat gain or fat loss and health, right? This is like, there's a sort of a Venn diagram and they intercross, but they're not the same.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, when I say that there's no such thing as a good and bad food, usually the first place people go to are like Twinkies. Oh, so Twinkies are good for you? Or like Big Macs. Oh, Big Macs are they're good for you? And I always be like, listen, let me ask you a question. Who do you think has a healthier relationship with food? The person who can have the Big Mac or have the Twinkie or have the slice of pizza at their daughter's birthday party and enjoy it without anxiety, without guilt, and then get back on track? Or the person who goes to their daughter's birthday party and refuses to eat the cake or the pizza or whatever because they're scared it's going to make them fat? Who has a healthier relationship with food? And the answer is very obvious: the person who can eat it without guilt or anxiety and then get right back on track. And when you frame it like this, people can start to understand health is far more than any one food. In fact, health is far more than just physical health, mental health, emotional health, work-life balance, relationship. Like, health is so much. So yes, what you eat has a major impact on your health. But we also understand that if you have an unhealthy relationship with food and you completely restrict yourself, you have a very unhealthy relationship with food, mentally, emotionally, physically, which can also lead to physical health issues. So if we're really looking at health, it's not hard to understand that a single food is inherently not good or bad. It's what you do for the majority of the time that makes up your health.
And when you say it, it makes so much sense that obviously if you have a poor relationship with food, you're going to struggle with anxiety. You'll be anxious. You might feel even depressed sometimes, that you have no access to things that other people are enjoying, and you feel like limited or restricted. That is still something that sometimes can affect you more, your quality of life, to even thinking that sometimes if you get some fried food or donuts, it's going to give you a heart attack over time.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
I think people get very fixated sometimes in their health. Like if you eat an organic food that has pesticides, that's going to kill them at some point or give them cancer. Or when it comes to just simple things like a Diet Coke or like artificial sweeteners, or like things that are so simple that, like, if you put it into context to one meal or one thing, that's just not going to make a huge difference unless you obviously consistently eat something over time and too much. And like, I guess you have to bring context to it as well.
Always. Context matters. Nuance matters. It's much easier to say something is good or bad, blanket statement, than it is to unpack it as a whole.
Completely agree. Yeah. So what would you say to someone, or like strategies would you recommend, who gets really anxious about eating out or traveling? Because this is very, very common. And I see that people that are used to make their own foods, their own meals, they like to have control over their nutrition. They get very anxious and stressed when it comes to go out of the control, the zone of control, that they are controlling the amount of protein, the amount of calories, how they make the foods, how they choose their things. And it's sort of going out of their normal habitual routine. And they think that all the progress is going to be lost, just as simple as feeling like they lose all the control over their nutrition. So when you have faced these sort of type of clients that are going over this situation, what would you recommend to get over this anxiety when they lose the control?
Yeah, I mean, I would sort of use the same type of analogy where it's like, listen, no one ever got skinny from having one salad, just like no one ever got fat from having one donut, right? It's like no one ever went out to dinner at TJI Fridays and just got fat from that dinner. It's just not how it works. I think you first have to make them understand the logical side of it. And one of the ways that I do this is I encourage them to have a conversation with themselves, like literally speak out loud. Because a lot of times when people are worried or anxious about something, they keep it in here. It's all a bunch of emotions in here, and they catastrophize. And they make something out to be like, they, in their mind, without logically thinking about it, just subconsciously, they get worried and anxious, and they think that the worst of the worst of the worst is going to happen. Like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get fat. I'm going to ruin all my progress because of this one meal. But when you make them speak it out loud, all of a sudden it doesn't sound so smart. And they're like, that was ridiculous. And you know this is true because if you've ever been feeling a certain way, maybe you had an argument with a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever it is, and you're going to vent to your friend. You call your friend up and you're venting. Oh, you're not going to believe this. And as you're thinking about what you're about to say, you're going to say, this is going to sound silly, but, and it's because as you're about to say it, you realize how silly it sounds as you're making it more and more logical. So just by having a conversation out loud with yourself, say, hey, so understand, okay, why am I anxious? I'm anxious because I'm about to go out to dinner and I won't have control over the food and I don't want to ruin my progress. So say it out loud. And then imagine that you were having a conversation with your best friend and your best friend told you, hey, I'm going out to dinner. I'm really nervous because I don't want to ruin all my progress. What do you think I should do? What would your advice be to your best friend? Would you say, you're right, you should stay home, you shouldn't go out to eat, make sure you have your green beans and your spinach and your grilled chicken, and just make up an excuse so that you don't have to go out to eat with them? Or would you say, hey, go out to dinner, enjoy yourself, it's one meal? And the advice you give your best friend would probably be the advice you should take.
Now, I've got this sort of conundrum with someone who is actually even more stressed because it's not just dinner, they are going for a holiday. Mm-hmm. This is even more anxiety provoking.
Yep.
What happens there?
It's the same thing, just on a larger scale. So I always say this, speak out loud to yourself. I always say, what's the advice you would give your best friend? And then also, I think we have to understand, like, I think a lot of coaches, we have to stop bullshitting people. Like, we have to be honest. Like, listen, if you go on this vacation, here's the deal. Here's what I honestly much believe. If you go on vacation and you don't gain a little bit of body fat, you probably didn't enjoy yourself. Just being honest. Like, it doesn't have to be 10 pounds of body fat. That's physiologically next to impossible unless you're on like a 2-month-long vacation and you eat whatever you want every single day. But what are we doing this for? Like, we're here on earth to enjoy ourselves, to live a great life. When you go on vacation, do you ask your boss to, like, do you say, like, hey, like, make sure I keep up to date with my emails over vacation? It's like, no, of course not. You're on vacation. You're taking time away from work. When you go on vacation, you should take time away from tracking your calories. Take time. If you want to work out, by all means, go for it. I'm not encouraging you to binge eat. I'm not saying eat like an asshole the whole time. I'm not saying eat to the point of discomfort. I'm saying relax, enjoy yourself, stop being so strict. No one ever got fat in a week, ever. But I know personally, if I come back from vacation and I haven't enjoyed myself and I've been strict with my nutrition, I'm going to come back from vacation and be really upset that I didn't get to enjoy the bananas Foster or the ice cream or the pie while I was on freaking vacation. Relax. Get back on track when you're back to work, when you're back to regular life. Vacation doesn't last for a very long time. Enjoy it. If you gain a pound or two of body fat, so what? Who cares? Literally nobody cares. Enjoy vacation. That's it. Like, if your best friend came back from vacation and they gained 2 pounds of body fat and they enjoyed it and they loved it and they had all this amazing food and they didn't worry about counting their calories, would you tell your best friend, oh, you fucked up? You gained 2 pounds of fat and you enjoyed yourself. You'd be like, I'm glad that you had fun. Like, that's amazing. What's your plan now? Well, now I'm going to get back on track. Cool.
That's it.
As you should. That's it. Just get the fuck back on track.
It is very funny because you see a lot of people being really, really scared of, well, I just enjoy myself. I had a really good time, but I don't really want to step on the scale because this is going to show something that I want to see. They obviously know they might have gained some weight, but like again, they bring this sort of anxiety to the scale, saying, feeling like the scale is going to define their day or what they are or how they should be behave, or they just associate guilt about getting more body weight. And sometimes we just feel like I stepped on the scale and this is all fat, and that's not necessarily the case. Most of the times it's more water than actual fat, and
Yep.
or food inside your stomach, or like other sort of factors that influence body weight, rather than just be thinking this is all body fat. And this is really common, and I've heard you say a lot with clients as well, like stop worrying too much about the scale. The scale is going to change. The scale is going to fluctuate every single day, and that's okay. It's the average and the trends you want to see over time. And obviously you're going to have some extra weight after you have some carbohydrates or a salty food or something like that, because you're going to get more water inside your muscles or around your body, but that doesn't mean like you have gained fat. So
Correct.
it is a lot of context and understanding, be more aware that there are much more things that affect your body weight than just one single meal.
That's exactly right.
I have a case study for you, and it's more like, what would be your approach?
Okay.
You might say, no, I haven't really thought about that before, but I'm sure there is something that you could have you could have to say with this client. So let's say there's a mom of four. She's married. She's 48 years old. She's a business owner. She's been dieting, yo-yo dieting for 20 years, and she can get into tracking and exercise. Like, if she gets to that mindset, she can do it for a while, but her weight doesn't seem to keep going in the right direction. So hence then she starts finding that because she's not seeing the scale moving in the right direction, she starts struggling to stay consistent because it doesn't feel like she can sustain everything she has to do to keep or achieve the goal, the things she wants. So she has to keep tracking the food, exercise, a lot of things, in addition to everything that she already has on her lap.
Mm-hmm.
So she finds that track or a way to being in a calorie deficit. She's a time poor person. How do you get her to find a balance and a way to be practical about her progress, that she can continue to be on the right direction without giving up?
Yeah, so this is a great question. This is a very common scenario. There are a couple things here that I think are really important. Number one is she's a mom of four and a business owner. So she's busy. She doesn't have much time, and it doesn't sound like she enjoys tracking her calories.
Need exercise.
So what I would say is I wouldn't have her count her calories. So my main approach would be this. My two-pronged approach would be I wouldn't have her count calories. I would have her do something else, which I'll explain. And I would go relentlessly hard in making sure that she understands how the scale works and understanding that the scale is not the sole measure of her progress. And especially like as a mother and as a business owner, those are two things that you need a lot of patience for. You need a lot of patience to be a good mother, and you need a lot of patience to be a good business owner. So usually when I'm working with someone who's a mother and or a business owner, it's actually very easy to help them understand how the scale works. You just have to frame it in a way that they can understand. So if I'm working with a business owner, I'm like, listen, how long did it take you for your business to become profitable? They'll be like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I'm like, okay, cool. So why in the hell do you expect your weight to go down every day? I was like, did your income go up every day when you started your business? They're like, no, absolutely not. There were weeks and months where it would go down, where I wanted to quit, where it didn't work. I was like, cool. So when your weight spikes up, why the hell do you quit? It's a really terrible situation. If your weight was a business, you would have failed over and over and over again. You have to treat your weight like a business. You could say, even for a mother who has kids, you could be like, listen, if your kid got a bad grade on a test, would you tell them just to drop out of school? Like, no, of course not. So when you weigh in and it doesn't show you what you want, why do you quit? What a terrible way to go about all of this. You're basing all of your success on a weigh-in, which is completely and utterly flawed. As both a business owner and as a parent, you understand. And when you frame it like this and give them a little bit of tough love, they're like, got it. Now I understand. Now it's not a justifiable excuse to quit just because my weight spikes up. So what I would have her do is I'd say I'd find a way to get her in a calorie deficit that does not include counting calories, which would probably be some variation of my 3 plates and 2 snacks rule. So I'd say, so every day you can have 3 meals. Each meal fits on 1 plate and 2 snacks. Each snack fits in the palm of your hand. Ideally, I'd like you to have protein on every plate. And for the snack, it can be a protein or a fruit. You choose. That's it. You don't need to count your calories. Just make sure every meal fits on 1 plate. Every snack fits in your hand. That's it. Track your progress for 30 days. Let's see how it goes. And that works very, very well.
That's really, really good advice. And especially when it comes to do this analogy of the business, they understanding, well, weight is going to be the same thing. Your income is going to go up and down, and sometimes you're not going to have any income at all. And you will
Correct.
have to just keep doing and being consistent with the things you're doing to make sure your business succeed at the end of the day. So it's not something that you're going to see improving every day. And same with your weight. Your weight is not going to drop every single day, and some days it's actually going to go up. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's because you fail and that's lack of progress. It's just like you need to see the big picture. And sometimes the problem is that these factors make people being more inconsistent. So the inconsistency is what makes them not see results over time. Is that, and I have spoken with this type of clients, and I told her, I think the main thing you need to focus on is being consistent, and you need to be patient. And it might sound not very sexy, because obviously you want to hear, well, you're going to drop 2 pounds every 2 days, and you're going to do, this is the way it's going to go. And it's very unpredictable, even more in someone who's so busy. He's got a lot of stress in their lives. It's very hard to tell them to commit to certain days of the week they're going to exercise, because sometimes life gets in the way. And with 4 kids, being all littles, like, it's really hard to say, well, I'm going to commit to exercise 4 days a week. And sometimes they just can't, or the weather is bad, so they cannot go outside. How do they find time within their day after a long day at work to exercise? So exercise is another barrier for her. What would you tell her to do in the case of exercise, especially when it's so difficult to sort of fit it in?
Yeah. So in terms of exercise, it's my job to make it as accessible as possible. Right. So a lot of coaches would use if you care about it, you'll make it work, and they'll still give that person like 4 or 5 times a week workout, 60 to 75 minutes a day. I think that's ridiculous. I think the easiest way to drive a client away and to guarantee their failure is to give them something that they are unable to do in that moment. I'll give you an example from myself personally, and I'll explain then how that would work for her in this situation. When I started jujitsu a little over a year ago, my coach said you should probably go at least 3 or 4 times a week. Now, at that point in my life, I wasn't willing, ready, or able to go 3 or 4 times a week to jujitsu. So I went twice a week. And sometimes only once. But it was enough where I really started to love it. So I went from 1 to 2 times a week for the first month, to 2 to 3 times a week the second month, 3 to 4 times a week the third month, and then now I go 6, 7 times a week. So, and this happened over the course of 3 or 4 months. Now, that's actually a relatively quick time frame. I just fell more and more in love with it, and I changed my priorities and my time frame to make sure that worked. Now my strength training has changed in order to accommodate for it. But if my coach told me that I had to go 6 or 7 days a week from the very beginning, I wouldn't have done it, and I wouldn't have seen success. Whereas because I started with 1 or 2 times a week at the beginning, and I started to see results and started to enjoy it, Well, then it became something that I actually started to make sure I got in because I saw the results. So going back to this mother of four business owner, I would say, hey, let's do 2 times a week workouts. Each workout's going to be 15 to 20 minutes. That's it. And then we'll reassess in 30, 60, 90 days. And usually what'll happen is when they're successful with it and they see the results from it, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe we could add a third day. And I'll be like, listen, you don't have to add a third day, but if you want to, we can. And then they'll start arguing for their third day. Like, oh, no, yes, I want a third day. And I'll be like, cool. If you want a third day, I can give you a third day. And now instead of me saying you need to do this, now they're saying I want to do this. And it's giving them the opportunity to fight for something that is actually going to be better for them.
I think the more simpler you give them something to achieve and to work on, it is much more likely that they're going to be successful at than just giving them something that is so overwhelming that you're not going to be able to even do it. It's same way when you get given a lot of recipes. I just look at how many ingredients I don't have of this list rather than actually thinking, oh, this is great. I just feel like so overwhelmed when I look at the recipes, and a lot of people do the same. They feel like this is so complicated, so many ingredients, so many steps to get this done. And especially if they're not a lover of cooking or having time to spend on the kitchen, this is going to be much more overwhelming and less feasible for them to stick to something. And there's a lot of meal plans that, well, I just give you a recipe book, you just follow these recipes, these meals, and it seems very nice in paper, but when it comes to implementation and practicality, it gets really hard, and people just quit because it's not something that you might be able to maintain when you're busy or when you have lots of different things to do and time is something that you're running out of. So yes, it gets when very, very important to think about the practicality of the advice you give to your clients.
Yeah, agreed.
Another thing I wanted to ask you is body image and how people can deal with negative body image. Is there any strategy that you would give a person if they are struggling to go through their acceptance of body image or just dealing with these negative emotions that are associated with that? Have you ever spoken with someone that has presented you, I do struggle a lot with my body image and that affects everything else?
A lot of people. A lot of people. You know, I think it's one of those things where when you struggle with it silently and you feel like you're alone, this isn't just body image, this is literally everything. Whether it's any insecurity, any struggle that you have, maybe depression, maybe alcoholism, maybe whatever it is you're struggling with, if you think you're alone, it makes it exponentially worse. And I think one of the most important things for people to understand is that almost every single person struggles with their body image on some level, right? Some people struggle with it more than others, but body image, this is why the fitness industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. This is why supplements sell so well. It's why there's so many fitness Instagrammers. It's why there's this is why the fitness industry is so huge, because it literally thrives off of people's insecurity with their own body. So you're not alone. If you're struggling with body image, like, you are not alone. And I think just by people hearing that, it's like takes a weight off their shoulder. Like, okay. I think one of the worst things that you can do when someone's struggling with an insecurity is just to tell them that they shouldn't feel that way. Right? It's like, if someone doesn't like how they look, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. It's like, fuck you, I do feel that way. And then it makes you feel bad because now you feel like you shouldn't feel bad. So now you feel bad for feeling bad. And so it's just a perpetual cycle. You can feel whatever way you want to feel. And you should know that having issues with how you look or struggling with body image, it's normal. It's part of life. It's part of like when you look at yourself different than everyone else looks at you. You see yourself in ways that no one else will see you. So I think if we're really looking at being realistic and understanding, we should say, listen, struggling with body image is normal. and you can do your best to try and be more proud of yourself and to find ways to become more confident, which I think one of the best ways is to improve your strength. I think it's probably one of the best things you can possibly do. But understanding it will probably always be there in some sense is okay. And when you can accept that, it has less power over you. And to be honest about it, don't lie about it. Like if people ask me like, hey, are you 100% confident in your body? It's no, of course not. I have body image issues. Everybody does. Everybody.
Yeah.
And the more that you own it, the less power it has. But with that said, if I could give someone some more advice, it'd be like, go to the gym and get strong. Focus on getting stronger. If you can't do a push-up, work towards getting a push-up. If you can't do a chin-up, work towards getting a chin-up. Get your deadlift stronger. Get your squat stronger. Improve your mile time. Do something to improve your performance. And when you see your performance improving, the way you look at yourself and your body will be completely different.
And they come with the excuse, well, I can't go to the gym. I hate being seen by other people.
It's number one, do it anyway. Or number two, do it at home. I don't care. Like
And nobody gives a shit of how you look. You think people are looking at you, but actually no one is really caring about that. Sometimes actually would say, well, this person is actually doing really well. I'm in my head doesn't pass or cross someone to criticize them, but actually like if someone is overweight and is at the gym, it's actually like, wow, this person is doing really well. It's amazing what are they achieving, rather than trying to diminish them because they are overweight or something like that. So it's
not to
completely the
mention,
opposite.
I agree with you. Let's say they are looking at you, and let's say they're judging you, and let's say they're making fun of you in their head, or maybe even out loud. Let's say they're being such an asshole. Would you rather, when you're 90 years old, would you rather say, hey, I'm really glad I never went to the gym and never worked out because they could have made fun of me? Or would you rather, when you're 90 years old talking to your grandchildren, would you rather say, hey, I'm so glad I went to the gym even though they were making fun of me, because I knew it was important and I knew it was the right thing to do? And we all know the answer. The answer is we would all rather do what's right rather than what's easy. We would all rather do what we know we should do because it's going to make us stronger and better, rather than avoiding something out of a fear. So whatever thing you'd be more proud to tell your kids or your grandkids, you should probably do.
It is just crossing that barrier of, I accept that I have a fear. I am anxious about this situation because it's probably going to happen, or if it doesn't happen, better for me. But there is a chance that odds are that could happen. And at the end of the day, that person doesn't even feed me. They don't pay my bills. Why should I care? Like if they make fun of me, that's their problem. That's their own view of life, and cool for them, not really for me, because you're doing the right thing. You're looking and you're giving yourself the priority you need for your health, for your well-being, for your mental health. So at the end of the day, you have to think that you are the star of your own movie and on your own life. And if you do just pay attention to what others tell about you or say about you, you're going to be trapped in this capsule of, I am what people say about me, but I have no room to grow on my own because I only depend on others people comments and opinions, but I have no strength or confidence to create my own journey, my own life. And this is so important to bring about because no one talks about this, and it is so simple just to bring up. You can be whatever you want and do whatever you want, and be confident that whatever you do is your own responsibility, and no one else is going to be able to influence over you, unless obviously someone who cares about you. But most of the time, people that comment, they don't even know you. They don't know your context or your background or why you're doing these things or what happened to you. So it is so important to pay attention to who talks about you and what is the intention of those comments as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
I've got another question for you, and this one is around challenges. I know you're someone who loves doing challenges and you're constantly thinking or talking about, well, let's do a challenge for 30 days or 90 days. Why do you like these challenges? And what's the best advice to those that are feeling that if I do a challenge, then what happens? Because they get really hyped up, they do the work, they feel like very encouraged and highly motivated, but then the challenge is finished and they feel like their journey, it ends, or there's no after the challenge, the challenge after the challenge, I would say.
It's funny. A lot of fitness professionals, they don't like, we'll call it a 30-day challenge. Like, oh, 30-day challenges are so stupid. It's like, listen, 30-day challenges aren't stupid. It's just most 30-day challenges are structured in a stupid way. They're not created in a way that are built for success. If you make a 30-day challenge, if you make a 30-day challenge where it's like the whole point is to eliminate sugar, yeah, that's a really stupid challenge because there's no way you're going to continue that. If you really struggle with counting your calories, if you've never done it before, but you know you should try it, and you make a 30-day challenge where you're going to count your calories every single day, whether or not you continue that after 30 days, you will 100% be a more informed, educated dieter because you did that challenge. Not every challenge has to last and continue forever, but make sure that what you do throughout that challenge keeps you educated and helps you get better. And then maybe every 60 days, every 30 days, or every 60, every 90, whatever, how many days, you make a new challenge. And again, it doesn't have to, it shouldn't be a, hey, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 30 days. Maybe it'll be a consistency challenge. You know what? For the next 30 days, I'm going to be at least 80% consistent with my nutrition or with my workouts. Or you know what? For the next 30 days, one of my favorite challenges I've ever done is a 30-day positivity challenge, where for 30 days, anytime I have any negative or pessimistic or complaining thoughts, I have to change it within 60 seconds. And if I don't, then I have to restart the challenge for 30 days. And that literally retrains you to take any situation, anything you're going through, to immediately turn it into something positive and optimistic, not to dwell on it for too long. Now, I'm not saying for the rest of your life you can only dwell or complain about something for 60 seconds or less, but I am saying that it's probably going to help you reframe how to think about things for the rest of your life. So listen, if you're looking for a 30-day challenge to get you to your goal, reach your goal in 30 days, you're probably approaching it the wrong way. But if you're looking for a 30-day challenge to enhance your life, well, now you have something better.
And I think challenges need to be seen as a way to sort of get you that push and accountability to do something that you haven't been consistent with, or you haven't been able to get to know on a deeper way. And this makes you be consistent enough doing and practicing things that you obviously haven't been able to do on a consistent way, that are going to lead you that result that you've been trying to look for. Or even if they don't get you to your results, they are set you up for success, maybe changing your mindset, your behaviors, your knowledge, your awareness around certain things, or they can improve the way you do certain things or you approach certain things. Maybe it's just creating a new habit that perhaps you weren't able to be consistent enough to create it, and this sort of pushes you in a way that you can do it. What are your thoughts about that?
I completely agree. I absolutely, I think a lot of times people, they struggle with doing anything because they don't believe in their ability to succeed. They don't believe they can do it at all. And sometimes a brief challenge, maybe even a 3-day challenge or 72-hour challenge to a week challenge, is enough to show them, oh, you know what? I can do this. I think it's worth it.
Do you feel like to be able to be successful in these challenges, you're better off having some type of accountability, or someone that you sort of need to, because if you're doing it yourself, sometimes a lot of people would say, well, what's the point? No one
Yeah, of
knows about it.
course. It doesn't take much perusing of the research to understand that accountability can be very, very helpful and beneficial for most people. You also have to be very self-aware. And if you know that you're not going to do it, if you don't have accountability, then it's your responsibility to find a coach, to find a partner, find a community to do it with. But if you're the kind of person who's like, you know what, if I say I'm going to do it, then I'm going to do it no matter what, cool. then go for it. But you just have to be aware of the type of person that you are. And either no one person's better than another, just you have to know who you are.
I agree. I think this is the most important thing, and being able to bring this into practical steps that can help you to achieve your goals in a better way. I know that I'm conscious of your time, and I know you've done maybe a lot of different things today, but I want to have you one more question, and then we wrap up the.
All right, one more, and then I gotta go. All right.
Yes. So, what is the best strategies to lose weight for you when it comes to no tracking or no counting calories?
I would definitely go with the 3 plates, 2 snacks that I said earlier. There are many different ways, but by and large, I've found that to be the best way for the majority of people. Not everybody, but what that does is it immediately limits how many calories you can have. It places a strong emphasis on protein. It allows you to eat your favorite foods in moderation, and you can modify it for you. If it's better to have 3 plates and 3 snacks, or 4 plates and 2 snacks, whatever it is, like you can modify it based on your individual needs. But having that structure is very helpful, and I would strongly recommend giving that a shot for 30 days.
How that plate consists of? How do you divide it? Do you divide it usual recommendations? Half of the plate would be vegetables, a quarter protein, a quarter carbohydrates, or do you structure differently?
No, so I used to get more specific with it and say, all right, so I want like a quarter of the plate protein, at least a quarter of the plate vegetables. But then I realized it was a little bit annoying, and people were like, well, what if I don't want vegetables for breakfast? And I got pissed off answering that. I was like, listen, make sure your meal has protein on it. You make sure your plate has protein. Like the meal must be focused around your protein, whether it's eggs, whether it's chicken, whether it's turkey, whether it's tofu, whether it's Greek yogurt, whether it's seitan, I don't care. Make sure your meal is focused around protein. When you look at your plate, I would say ideally make sure it looks like a plate that you'd be proud of, right? Like if you have like a little bit of protein and then a whole lot of potato chips, probably not the best plate, right? But do your best to center your meal around protein. If you have some vegetables, amazing. If you want to have some carbs and fats, totally fine too. But you must have protein at every meal. And then every snack has to fit in your palm. That's it. And ideally, the snack will be a fruit or a protein. Now, sometimes maybe you'll have M&Ms for your snack and it fits in the palm of your hand. Cool. You've moderated the portion size. It fits right in your palm. And you're not going to do that every time you have a snack. But occasionally, go for it. Not a problem.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for your time. I really appreciate it. I had such a great time, and we talk about so many different things that I think is so relevant, and it is going to be very important and impactful in so many people's lives. Is there anything that you want to say in addition to what we've spoken about? Any sort of final message or any words?
No, this has been phenomenal. You're a great host. Thank you for having me on, and I hope to do it again soon.
Thank you so much. Can people find you? Where is the best place to find you?
Yeah, I have my own YouTube or Instagram or Twitter, Facebook, podcast. If you Google search my name, Jordan Syatt, you'll be able to find a lot.
I make sure I link everything in the description below, so everything can be in the one place and people can find you there.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.